We have a quorum for the Business, Finance, and Facilities Committee, so we will begin at 11:08. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. Angela, will you please take roll?
Now.
Chair Downs,
Here.
Vice Chair Boylan,
Aye.
Regent Ariscotta,
Oh, he's here.
Regent Brooks,
Here.
Regent Goodman,
Here.
Regent Tarkanian.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you. With respect to today's agenda, I would like to announce that item 8 has been withdrawn at the request of UNLV. I will now move on to agenda item 1, public comment. And so is there any public comment here at WNC? Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, Chair Downs, Vice Chair Boyland, and members. Kent Irvin, ERBIN, Nevada Faculty Alliance. The fiscal exceptions report, again, has several very exceptional items. UNLV Athletics had a $21 million deficit at the end of FY24, up from $6 million at the beginning of the fiscal year. The written explanation mainly says they are working on more gifts. UNLV is providing $5 million from investment accounts and a bridge loan of $6 million. So the question is, are those funds that could have been used to support the core educational mission? The $60 million deficit at UNLV for the Maryland Parkway purchase relies on projected lease revenue over 20 years. How secure is that financing? UNR has a $28 million deficit on various capital projects, including nearly $10 million in gift pledges for athletics and a $19 million deficit in special projects funds for, quote, a variety of campus funding demands, unquote. And they're also counting there on the ability for future repayment. There's also the 30-year, $10 million per year commitment for the business building public-private partnership, with students on the hook for additional student fees if the quasi-endowment is not fully funded. These large amounts are concerning and bear close scrutiny. We have heard questions raised about inappropriate expenditures in athletics programs, for example. The best way to dispel concerns, even if they are just unfounded rumors, is full transparency. Please ask for full audits and analyses of the expenditures in the athletics programs and deferred capital project funding. Reviews should determine not just whether the transactions are within the letter of the law and NSHE regulations, but whether the expenditures make fiscal sense and fully support the mission set out by the Board of Regents. The board should not wait for the legislative audits that are to come to hold the institutions accountable. Transparency and sunshine avoids issues and bad press later. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Chair Downs, if I may, Michael Wixon for the record. I believe you need to read the introduction to public comment as well, if you would, please.
Yes, thank you. I was about to do that. I do apologize for not having read this before. So for those who would like to call in and offer public comment, please dial 669-444-9171 and enter the meeting ID 999-9889-3151 and passcode 999999. So I'll go back to WNC. Is there any public comment at WNC? Any further public comment? Seeing there's none, is SCS, is there any public comment on the phone?
There are no callers in the queue at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wixom, is it fair to go on then, or do we need to wait to see if people come in?
No, it's appropriate. You may go on, so long as you've read the declaration. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to agenda item 2. Consent items. Consent items will be considered together and acted on in one motion unless an item is removed to be considered separately by the committee. So we have the minutes and summary of Board of Regents approved issuance of bonds in fiscal year 2023-2024. Regent Boylan, Vice Chair Boylan.
I was just trying to make a motion to get the minutes approved, sir. I jumped the gun, sorry.
That's fine. Did you want to do the whole consent agenda or just the minutes on that motion?
The whole consent agenda, yes, sir.
We have a motion for the passage of the consent agenda items. Is there a second motion? We have a second from Regent Ariscada. Any discussion? All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Is there any other ayes? All opposed say nay. So I guess my question is, that pass? Because I only heard 3 voices on this.
This is Regent Brooks for the record, Chair.
Yes.
Maybe we're coming in a little bit delayed, but Regent Goodman and I are both yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item number 3. Fourth quarterly fiscal year 2023-2024 fiscal exceptions, self-supporting budgets. So, Vice Chancellor Fatone.
Thank you, Chair Downs. Chris Fatone, Chief Financial Officer. Item 3 on your agenda is the quarterly fiscal exception report, and this is the report that's as of June 30th, 2024. This report that you see each quarter provides the status of self-supporting accounts and project accounts that have negative cash balances at the end of the quarter. The report's broken up into several sections, and I'll just discuss each section and pause for questions. And we do have staff from the campuses available if you have some questions there as well. The first section is pages 4 through 7 on your report. Those are the operating programs, and meaning that those are programs that are supporting an ongoing program at the campus. And there are several pages there. So there's several items that you've seen before. The CSN dental faculty practice, the ASUN bookstore account at University of Nevada, Reno. There's a couple accounts on here I wanted to highlight that I pulled up to this section after the last quarterly report. At the UNLV Medical School GME accounts, you'll see a GME billing account and GME resident support accounts. Those accounts, they moved up to this section just because the balances at the end of the quarter represented more than 1 month's worth of activity. So they'd been previously in the timing difference section of the report, because these accounts do naturally incur a deficit at the end of any given month, but they are expected to clear out. So I just pulled them up here because there was a little delay in the clearing to highlight those. There are offsetting compensating balances on those. So the entire GME program actually has a positive ending balance at the end of the quarter. So when you're looking at those numbers, they're larger numbers, but they're just about 2 months worth of activity, and they do have other accounts that offset those to positive. I think I'll pause there, and see, I didn't want to read through all the accounts that are on the list there, but I'll pause and see if you have any questions, either for me or for the campuses.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, did you want to continue, or just does that summarize it all?
That is all there.
Okay.
I can go on to section 2, which is your capital project accounts. Again, here, there's a couple that you've seen previously from University of Nevada, Las Vegas. There's one account that is related to the Paradise campus, and you might remember at your last meeting, you actually approved an allocation that would close that account, and as the note reports, that'll close at the end of, at the start of the new fiscal year. And then the other account being the football facility that has been on the report before. The new items are some accounts identified at the University of Nevada, Reno, also related to capital projects, and the notes are there in the report for you, so I don't want to read them, but if you have any questions, I'll pause there.
Are there any questions? I think I have, might have a question. No, we're good. Any questions from the board, from the committee? Seeing none, did you have a question, Regent Ariscada?
Trying to catch up to
Okay, continue.
And the last section is, oh, actually, it's not the last section, because we do have the timing difference section, but section 3 is the section that just includes 2 strategic projects funding accounts, one at UNR, one at UNLV. Those accounts are accounts that you've seen each quarter, and the activity in those accounts are reported there for you. Generally, reduction activity that's scheduled through the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you. Are there any questions about this section on the report? Okay, seeing none. Is there anything else, sir?
Just that the last section is that section that it reports other accounts that do have negative balances, but they're identified as timing differences, meaning they're resolved generally at the end of immediately after the end of the month. So we just include them for transparency, but they are timing difference.
Which section was that?
Section 4, sorry.
Okay, section 4. Okay.
That is pages 10 to 12 in the report.
Yeah. Are there any questions from the committee regarding the exceptions report? Regent Ariscotta?
Way over there. Thank you very much, Chair Downs. CFO Vitale, a couple questions. And in regards to, I'm on page 5, going down to page 6, some of the intercollegiate athletics, not just at UNLV, but at other locations, some of the intercollegiate athletics are those monetary generating operations? Because from this, it's looking like they are. Is that correct, what I'm looking at?
Thank you, Chris Fatone. Page 5. Page 5, the top of that page is the UNLV athletics summary. And what you're seeing in terms of looking at this report, it does include in the second column there. So the first column is the opening balance. That's your July 1st, 2023 opening balance. And then the report includes the revenue activity. So this being the self-supporting side of the athletics programs, this is where the ticket sale revenue, multimedia revenue, and some institutional support, self-supporting student fee revenue, for example, would be in that revenue category. Then their expenses, so 28.8 million of revenue, 42.8 million of expenses, leading to the ending balance of negative 20.5 million, 20.6 million at the end of the fiscal year. So it is the self-supporting activity. It does generate revenue. It's also incurring expenses that exceed that revenue.
And in the form of $20 million.
The 20.6 is the cumulative that includes the beginning balance. So it is that change year over year is just about 15 million.
It's in the negative.
Yep, it's all in the negative. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Okay. Seeing none, this is an information item. We will move on to, did you have a question? Was it something else? I would like to, just before we move on, then if I can make a comment about, probably going to get some response from faculty about this, but the negative, I had a conversation with President Whitfield about that negative balance of $20.57 million, and that's, it's concerning. And we talked about the budgets, and I want to speak for you, but just that it is covered by the general fund. I don't know if you want to speak to that, but it's having been a faculty member and having experienced having a sports team. I remember being very, I guess, frustrated with the money that was going out to it. And when budget crises hit in 2011, I believe it was, we ended our sports team at WNC. We still have the sports field though, and as President Dalby acknowledges. But, so we don't have the baseball or softball. When I went over to student services and worked as a vice president, the personnel there was telling me how beneficial it was to enrollment to have that sports team. So why we didn't see the direct money coming back, I think it was like 400,000 a year that loss in that. We didn't see that money coming back from ticket revenue or anything, but the enrollment it generated and the attention it gave to the institution was something that we lost. And I believe that this is a situation too, in this case, that there is a negative balance, but there is probably a cost that we're not calculating, which would be, I don't know if President Whitfield wants to speak to that, but there is the benefit of having the attention out there and the students on campus for athletics. So that's my perspective on it. Did you want to comment? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. And for the record, Keith Whitfield, President of UNLV. Let me just say just a couple of quick things. We can get into additional details if necessary, but I want to come back to the point that you're making. It's one of those things. I was just talking to my CFO saying, gosh, if we could just monetize that, it would be nice to be able to show what the effect is. But I can tell you from personal experience, there is an effect of having sports teams, even if they're, I'm looking over at CFO Klinger about our upcoming sports seasons, but even if they're not winning, that actually, even if they're not winning, it is a part of the brand of the university. And one of the things I know that President Sandoval has been doing, that I've been trying to do, is to make a closer connection so that you start to see more of that connection. Part of our student success is incredible when we look at the athletics that is happening at UNR and UNLV. In addition, I'd say specifically about UNLV, we are too concerned about that significant deficit and have several ways in which we're going to go about trying to change that. Some of it, I can tell you the landscape in terms of philanthropy has changed. For sports, it used to be that there was a lot of unrestricted money that's given, and that's been pulled back some. And so one of the things that we're doing is having a campaign that is going after unrestricted dollars that can then be used to offset things. It's like anything else in the budgeting world. There's certain things that you can use dollars for and can't use dollars for. And so that's one of the struggles that we have. I will say that, and I really didn't mean to make a UNR hit with that. I just came out wrong. I'm sorry. I'm talking off the top of my head here. But I will tell you, and another interesting piece to that is that we last weekend beat a Big 12 team. And since that time, our revenue from tickets, or our tickets, have gone up by about 1,000. I mean, it makes a big difference. And so there's an interplay that goes back and forth, but we're very aware that we need to manage those sorts of things. We're doing other things, and I'm sure other CSN, UNR, all those others that have them, we're holding positions, and so that we don't fill those positions, so that we can try to work on that deficit. So we're very, very conscious of it. I think we also, just as a group, should be thoughtful about thinking that athletics and academics is completely separate. It's not. They are interconnected in many different ways, in many useful sorts of ways. And so we would attack this deficit like we'd attack any other deficit, of trying to make sure that we really are spending the money where it should be done, accountability and frequency of checking and seeing how we're making a progress on reducing that. So I'll stop there. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer before I go sit back down.
Well, I appreciate that. I do understand the indirect benefits that athletics brings to it, and it's hard to quantify that sometimes. Any questions for President Whitfield?
Question. Not necessarily a question, but a comment. I know that at the end of the year, we always go over actual expenditures and predicted expenditures. And although there's offsetting numbers on each of those, in the end, as always, athletics seems and is always beneficial towards the campus, for the campus and towards the campus, regardless if it's branding or regardless of athletics or ticket sales or just notoriety to the school. Athletics always coincides with the success of a university. I know that A.D. Harper, as I'm looking at him in the picture down low, is that you all always, and each athletic director gives a thorough reasoning between and because there's such a huge offset in expenditures and actuals. So it's something I'm always looking forward to, especially for the quarterly meeting in Las Vegas following the UNR UNLV football game. Thank you.
Yes, we will see. Let me just add, Keith Whitfield for the record, President of UNLV. One of the other things that it's a smaller thing, but we add in. For example, for us, part of our deficit comes from actually trying to maintain our facilities. And our facilities are not, most of them for the most part, are not just for our athletes. Actually, they're used for club sports, they're used for other activities. We just had UNLV Premier, which is one of our soccer fields, and had, I forgot, something like 9,000 students. And so, yeah, it's, I think that's why we just want to be careful of it's not good for the health of a university to suggest that athletics somehow sits over in left field and academics sits over in right field. They connect with one another, they build on one another, and in the best case scenario, having both be strong, really they do actually cross foster each other and make for a better university and make for a better student experience as well.
Thank you. Any questions for President Whitfield then? Seeing none, we'll move on then. Thank you. So, agenda item number 4 then. Fourth quarter fiscal year 2023-2024, budget transfer, state-supported or self-supporting operating budgets. This is Vice Chancellor Fatone.
Thank you, Chris Fatone, Chief Financial Officer again. Item number 4 on your agenda is the fourth quarter budget transfers report, and this report is a requirement of the board policy to report budget changes of function in excess of $500,000 for each quarter. While there's a few items on here, I think I would, and we provided some detail for you in the report, I would probably summarize the overarching theme of these as general fiscal year closing budget balancing adjustments so that the appropriations for each of the units could be closed. And again, within the report, there's some details for you. I know we have staff from the campuses that could answer questions if you have any specific to the items on the report, but I would pause there otherwise for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee on this report? Seeing none, we're good on this item. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 5, release of easement located at 1701 Buckeye Road, Minden, Nevada, WNC. President Dolpe.
Good morning, everybody. Kyle Dalpe, Western Nevada College for the record. Chair Downs, Vice Chair Boylan, thank you for hearing us today on this item. It's pretty extensive in the packet. I'll give you a high level and then we can answer any questions. We are looking for a release of an easement located at our Douglas campus down in Minden. This is not an actual road that has been created. It's the right to create a road from our campus east across a property to another road that has not been completed. So it's the right to this easement in the future, which does not show up in any of our strategic planning documents. We have no intention to use it, and we have been approached by the owners of that property to abandon this easement, to turn over the rights to it, which we are in agreement with. The representatives from RV Boat and Storage are here in the audience, and they have offered an endowment to the college foundation for $50,000 to benefit students through scholarships in return for us turning over the rights to this easement on this property. Again, we have no plans for it. We have not had any plans for it. It is sitting there just as a future prospect for which we don't see any reason for. And so we are in support of this, and we would appreciate the board allowing us to move forward with this as is defined in the packet. And I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions.
Are there any questions from the committee for President Dolpe? Does not look like there are any questions. Is there any action the committee wishes to take? This is an action item. Yes,
Chair.
Vice Chair Boylan.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to make a motion that we let this proceed because it's a win-win situation. We get the $50,000, like President Dalpy just said, and I think we should go ahead and I'll make a motion that we let this proceed and go ahead and let the, I think he said the RV people have the land back and they'll give us 50,000. That's correct.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
Make that second.
Chair Downs, before you move forward with the vote, just in reading the agenda, there really, as I see it, two pieces to the motion. Number one would be the authorization of the release of the easement itself, and then coupled with that, there's also a request for authority to the president to execute and release any easement and corrective amendments, et cetera. So just want to clarify if the motion's going to be both of those or singular.
Both of those. Thank you, Council. I appreciate that.
Regent Ariscotta, do you accept that scope of the motion?
Yes, I do. However, bear with me if I could, please.
Okay.
Regent Boylan, I don't want to speak on your behalf, sir, but are you saying that the
Yes, sir. No worries.
Western Nevada College Foundation will receive the endowment of $50,000 to benefit the students? Is that what you're
Yes.
specifying, that 50 grand goes to the beneficial of the students? In addition to.
Yeah, I think it's the. Sorry, sir. Go ahead.
No, you.
Yeah, I think that's what President Dalpy said, and if it's goes to the students, I'm all for it. In the form of not grants, but I think what was the word, President Dalpy?
So thank you, Regent Moylan, Kyle Dalpy for the record. So the gift would be made to the WNC Foundation. The gift of $50,000 would be put in an endowment. The interest on that endowment would be used for scholarships for students, and that would allow it to carry on beyond the original $50,000. It would basically go on as long as the market's up. We can award scholarships, and we found that to be the case.
Outstanding. Thank you, President Dalpy. Endowment. That's the word. Thank you so much.
And just to reiterate, President Dalpy, you have no use, no plans, no nothing for this property.
Kyle Dalpy for the record, we do not.
Thank you, sir. I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and the second to the motion. Special Counsel Nilsson, could you just summarize then what were those 2 points before we come to it?
Yeah, as I understand the motion, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's really two parts. The first part is to release the easement at the said property. And then the second part, related part, would be to authorize the president or his designees to execute any releases of the easements or any corrective amendments thereto.
Thank you. So understanding that motion, the context of the motion, is there any other discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 I vote aye myself. Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 6, transfer of the high-tech center to Carson City School District for WNC. Again, President Dalpy.
Thank you, Kyle Dalpy, President of Western Nevada College. This one, similar but different, so we'll walk through this one as well. We are looking to transfer the high-tech center, which is our building that currently lives on the Carson City High School grounds. It was legislatively appropriated back in the late 90s through state funds. It is a building that we were entitled to use. We were responsible for the maintenance. We were responsible for all operations in there. Over the years now, it has morphed into a different use of space where the school district is taking on more of it for the utilization piece for scheduling, and we no longer use it in the original way it was intended, which is to hold jumpstart classes or dual enrollment classes with students exclusively there. We use it there. We also go around their building. So there's two pieces with this. We are asking for the transfer of the high-tech center, and then I think I'll get it right. We're also asking for the authority to continue with the paperwork and executing it if approved. The Carson City School District has already voted on this. They've already voted to accept this parcel. There was no money changing hands on this one. We are interested in doing this for two big reasons. One is that we are currently responsible for that building, which runs as stated in the packet with actual costs plus time and labor about $100,000 per year. And we very little utilize it, and we will still have access to utilize space in Carson High School, whether it's in this building or in one of their other buildings. The second piece is that we have already, for safety purposes, given up the ability to get in and out of that building on our own. A couple of our people have their own security, but we have essentially turned the security over to the school district because with everything going on in the world of security right now, our business is not to monitor K-12 security. That's their job, and they actually prefer to do that. And so being responsible for a building, whether it's the HVAC or the safety of the students in it, is not in our best interest. At some extent, it's a liability if something were to break or something were to happen. And we are more than happy to turn this building over to the school district. They have said, as is stated in here, that we of course still have access to other venues in the building, whether it's a classroom in that particular building or another classroom down another wing to hold our dual enrollment classes. And so with that, I'll stop and answer any questions. Again, a transfer of the high-tech center, which was appropriated through the legislature in the late 90s to the Carson City School District and no longer be owned or operated by the college, and the ability to it's already been negotiated but finalized through the means needed with likely legal counsel to make that happen if approved.
Thank you, President Delpy. Are there any questions?
Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair Boylan.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. President Dolby. So we'll save $100,000, and that comes back to the college, to NSHE, and we make goodwill with the school district. I think that's awesome. But is there any possibility of selling that land? Is anybody interested? Would we make more money by just selling it to somebody, or just a question? I mean, I already like it because we're saving $100,000 a year, and could we use that money, maybe help give some back to the students? I know we can't. I'm just saying that. But is there any interest in anyone wanting to buy that land at all? Just a thought.
So thank you, Regent Boylan, Kyle Delpy, Western Nevada College, for the record. So the building is actually located on the school district's property, almost embedded in their complex of buildings for the high school. So actually separating out and selling it is not a possibility. We consider, with Carson City being one of our first and more robust dual enrollment partners, that this is a good way to have the administration of this building moved to the other entity because it still stays in the education realm, and so that's why we deemed it appropriate. As a side note, the $100,000, which is it's better than napkin math, but it's some cash and then time and energy spent by our facilities crew. That is actually being borne right now by our existing budgets. It's not a separate appropriation or allocation, and so that money would stay on campus and be used for things. On our current campus, the buildings we actually use for our on-campus students, and not to mention the facility staff and their wear and tear to maintain a building, which is, even though a few miles down the street, still takes them off campus when we really need them on one of our sites. So I appreciate the question. I hope that answers it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, President Dolphy. And if there aren't any other questions or suggestions, I'd like to make a motion, and I'll ask council. Is this a two-part item also, or is it just single? And we say that I make a motion to transfer the property to Carson City School District?
Yeah.
Is it two parts or just one?
Yeah, Regent Boylan, you would have the option of a
Yes, sir.
two-parter. So it'd be, if you want to do the two-part option, it would be motion to transfer the property rights in the high-tech center and also authorize the chancellor to execute any amendments, et cetera.
Thank you, Council. Let's make it a two-part, and I'd authorize the Chancellor to make any of those things needed. Chair, you can make that a better sounding motion, but let's make it a two-part and
That I can
if there's
improve.
nobody else,
Okay, so
please improve it.
we have the motion to transfer the property and to enable the chancellor to complete any other such amendments for the transfer of the property. Does that suffice?
That will suffice, yes.
Okay,
I accept that.
is there a second to the motion?
Second.
We have a second from Regent Ariscotta. Is there any more discussion on this item? So I would just say, I've been in that building, and my first time there, I was surprised to see how little presence WNC had in it, and it looked like a high school building. So I'm like, here we are, responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of this building, but it's something they're using, and it's a goodwill issue too. But it did connect us
Yes,
up
sir.
with, connected WNC to Carson High School, and I think that that relationship will be maintained, probably stronger as we go forward. Okay, so if there are no other,
I'm glad you copied my votes. Thank you so much.
if there are no other comments or questions, and I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote aye as well, so, any opposed? Okay, the item passes, thank you. Thank you, President Delpy. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 7. The Fifth Amendment to the interlocal medical office lease between UNLV and the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada for property located at 1524 Pinto Lane, Las Vegas, Nevada. So President Whitfield.
Thank you, Chair, and for the record, Keith Whitfield, President of UNLV. Currently, the medical school's pediatric clinic practice is housed at 1524 Pinto Lane through a lease with the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada. This has happened since 2017, but UMC is unable to renew the current lease on a long-term basis as it now needs that space for other needs. In response, UNLV Health, which is our clinical practice plan, is planning to move the pediatric clinic practice to a new lease space yet to be determined. We will be researching that and bring it back at a future meeting of where we would like to try to move it to. But in the meantime, to make that future relocation possible, the clinic actually needs to extend the current lease at Pinto Lane by 9 months. I hereby request approval of a Fifth Amendment to this lease to grant UNLV exactly that, so that we can be in that space until the lease expires, which is on July 31st, 2025. All costs necessary for this relocation will be covered by our clinical practice plan, and with that in mind, I offer this for your consideration.
Thank you, President Whitfield. Are there any questions from the committee for President Whitfield? Yes, Vice Chair Boylan.
Yes, sir. President Whitfield, thank you for that. You mentioned something about other needs. What are those other needs that UNLV has for that building?
Thank you.
I didn't quite understand that when you. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you for the question, Regent Boylan. For the record, Keith Whitfield, President of UNLV. It's actually UMC's needs, not UNLV's needs, in terms of the reason why they don't want to enter into a long-term lease to continue. You know, like I said, we started in 2017, and as we've approached them and said, hey, can we do a long-term lease with them? They said, oh, we actually have some other needs for that space, and so we need to go out and try to find another one. But they are willing to extend that lease until July 31st of 2025, at which time then we would actually have to move into another space. Between now and then, our real estate experts are actually going out and trying to find another space that would accommodate that pediatric practice plan. Is that clear, sir?
I see. Thank you. Yes, that makes more sense because I was wondering what needs we had if we're emptying it for. What's it going to be, a dance studio or something? But it's UMC's needs. I get it. Thank you so much, President Whitfield.
Are there any other questions for President Whitfield on this item? Regent Ariscotta.
President Whitfield, you just mentioned that your real estate experts are looking for a piece of property to house the pediatric clinic. So when you say house, that's a 12,500 square foot house. That's a good sized building. Is it going to be in the proximity of the School of Medicine, or where are y'all looking?
If you look at our footprint right now for the medical school, it is in not only our medical place, but in several places where we
Yes.
lease around the city. We're going to try to find some place that is in proximity. As you know, that there is a big move to create a medical district. But that medical district actually has limitations to it, has limitations even in terms of rentable space. And so we want to be someplace that's actually in proximity to it, because we want folks that actually need to come to the clinic to feel like they're going to that medical district, to that UNLV, central piece of it. But it's going to be distributed just like it is now. So we're looking with an eye towards the future of making sure that we'll be able to create that. We may have some other units that could go in that, which would help to bring in revenue to offset the cost, so that we can try to get the best space that we can. And also be able to try to find one that we can use for the long term, so we don't have to keep coming back with leases to the board to have to approve. It would be nice to be able to find something that's a little bit more secure, but that just depends. The last thing I'll say about your comment too is that we're in an interesting position, a place that I think will benefit us, which is that office space, nobody wants to finance it anymore. And so people, and lots of people don't want to use it. And so what we're hoping is that we can find some place that will actually accommodate the size, space, and scope that we need for that pediatric practice plan.
Is there a critical community need for, and I'm pretty much paraphrasing off of your fourth paragraph of your background information, but due to the critical community need and support provided by the Resiliency Center, UNLV Med, is this something critical you all need to get sooner than later? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And a space that actually will maybe provide some opportunity for some growth. Say the anchor piece to this is pediatrics, and there's a great need to improve pediatric care in the valley.
And beneficial to the UNLV School of Medicine also?
Yes, sir.
Very much so. Fully support. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Regent Ariscotta. Are there any other questions on this item?
Chair, it's Regent Brooks for the record.
Yes.
If I may, the only question that I have is, well, I was interested, is there anybody from UMC that's in the meeting with us that might field a question?
For the record, Keith Whitfield,
Yep.
President of UNLV. Regent Brooks, for your question, we don't have somebody from UMC, but I do have the Dean of School of Medicine, and he might be able to provide you one, but we don't have anybody directly from UMC. Would you like him to be able to offer comments to your question?
Sure, I appreciate that. I was just trying to understand this from the UMC perspective. It sounds like they're not interested in renewing a lease with UNLV. However, there's maybe an offer to extend the amount of time that UNLV occupies the space now, while at the same time they're looking to move to additional space. Does that sum up the agenda item?
For the record, Mark Kahn, Dean Kirk School of Medicine. I think that's correct, Regent. So we have we work well with UMC. This was lease space. They're continuing to grow new programs. This is, I think, the second or third extension of this lease. But they are growing themselves. And as the president mentioned, space in the medical district is sometimes tight. So I don't know exactly what they're planning on doing with this space, but again, it's part of their growth strategy.
Sure, and I appreciate that, Dean Kahn. And so they're from UMC's standpoint, and really I think what I'm looking at is the relationships, right, that we have out in the community with the institutions and service connectors. And so they have no objections to an extension of lease. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. Yeah. No, they have approved that, but we have to go through this board from our end.
Sure. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Regent Ariscotta?
It's going to make a motion to approve,
Okay, we have a motion to approve this from Regent Ariscotta.
as stated on the agenda.
Is
Yeah, I'm
there-
sorry to jump in once again.
I thought you were,
This
I
is-
thought
this
you were
is-
going
This is
to.
another one of these ones that I, similar to
Yep.
agenda items 5 and 6, where I think one option would be a motion to approve the request for the Fifth Amendment to the interlocal agreement, and also give the authority of the chancellor to execute the amendments and any documents necessary to complete the transaction.
Counselor Rowe, when I started talking, you jumped in on me, and I knew exactly what I was going to need to do. I'm going to make the motion for approval of the Fifth Amendment to the interlocal medical office lease with University Medical Center of Southern Nevada for property located at the 1524 Pinto Lane down in Las Vegas, Nevada. Additionally, I will also make a motion for the chancellor to be granted authority to execute the Fifth Amendment to interlocal medical office lease and any ancillary documents deemed necessary for the approval for the appropriate by the Nevada System of Higher Education Chief General Counsel. I have two motions on the table.
I second both motions.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, second from Regent Arcanian. Are there any questions or any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of these motions signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
I vote aye as well. All opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, President Whitfield. Okay. So seeing that item number 8 was withdrawn, we'll move to item number 9, new business. Are there any items of new business for consideration at a future meeting? Say yes. I think we have an item here. Hang on.
Yes, future agenda items. Thank you for placating here. Give me a second. One of the items that was brought up today, CFO Vuitton hit on it pretty well in regards to the. Sorry, I apologize for my floundering here, folks. But it was for the fiscal exception report on the fourth quarter. Some of the items that I'd really like to focus on are some of the intercollegiate athletics and fourth quarter ending, and the fiscal exceptions that you went over, Mr. Vuitton, and explained them perfectly, actually. However, I think we need to get a deeper dive into some of the athletic reports and the benefits in which, although it may show a negative on the books, that there are actual positives coming in regards to not just recognition, not just finances, but show the cost analysis of, yes, you may have something in the negative, but it's truly a positive for the system, truly a positive for each campus. And I just feel that'd be really beneficial. And I know the athletic directors do a splendid job on this, especially during the fourth quarter or during the December meeting. But I would just like to have it highlighted a little bit more in depth. And we can go over it a little bit more in detail, gentlemen.
Thank you, Regent Ariscotta.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Regent Tarkanian.
I would agree with that. Are you talking about including a full audit as was mentioned earlier?
Are you speaking about in regard to audit compliance in the Title IX committee?
Yes.
Regent Tarkanian, you are wise beyond your years. You kind of see the relationships I'm going with both audit and with BFF. So yes, you picked up on what I was putting down, so thank you.
Okay. Well, I'd like to second the motion.
Well, it's not a motion.
Oh, excuse me.
It's a new business item.
Yeah, Regent Tarkanian, this is your counsel, Chris Nielsen. Yeah, this is an information-only item for you to put forward. A new-
I knew
new
that.
idea.
I just,
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Are there any other items for new business? Seeing none, we will go to public comments. Is there any public comment here at WNC? Seeing none, SCS, is there any public comment on the phone?
There are no callers in the queue.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.